Hello and welcome to On the Go with AAUW, the American Association of University Women. I'm your host, Jennifer DeSanto, Executive Director of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at George Mason University. And today on our show we will be discussing the Fall for the Book Festival at George Mason University. The festival brings together people of all ages and interests to meet authors, discuss books, enjoy events, and engage in workshops. The festival will occur October 11th through October 14th this coming fall. My guests today are Bill Miller, Executive Director of the Fall for the Book Festival, and Kara Oakleaf, the Festival Director, and Susie Rigdon, the Festival Manager. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we have a lot to talk about. We have a number of books here on the table that we're going to be highlighting. So our viewers can either make a list of the authors or they can visit the website, fallforthebookfestival.org.
Fallforthebook.org, yes.
Oh, fallforthebook.org, to get a list of all the authors that are going to be happening during the festival. But before we begin talking about the books, how about we talk about who you all are? Bill, why don't we begin with you, the Festival Director?
Yes, I am the Festival Director. I've been involved since the beginning, since the late 90s. The first one was in 99, and I've been some kind of executive producer or director or something like that since then. And as the Executive Director, I sort of have two jobs. I do the big stuff like interact with the board, development, fundraising, key communications, that kind of stuff. But I also run around during the festival and put up chairs and get people water and whatever else needs to be done.
And Kara?
Absolutely, it's a small staff, so everybody ends up doing a little bit of everything. Yes. But as the festival director, I'm moving into some of the work that Bill's been doing for the past 20 years almost now. But I do a lot of work with the authors that are coming in, working with their agents and their publicists, doing a lot of work with our venues and our sponsors, as well as the university. To get us all set up for this major event where we have quite a lot of people coming in just for this.
And Susie, what is your role at the festival as the festival manager?
Yeah, well, I actually started with the festival 3 years, so this is my fourth festival. The first year I was the social media manager, and then I moved into the marketing director role. So now my role is a little bit of everything, but I've been working with Kara to build the schedule and make sure everything fits in a time and place. The 150 authors, it's a little bit like a puzzle. And then, yeah, working with our marketing director now on writing the program and building our free app and doing a lot of those types of things, so when people come to the festival, they have everything right at their fingertips.
So this is a free and open to the public festival. It occurs at George Mason University as well as the city of Fairfax and other venues around the region. How many authors? 150?
We are over 150 this year.
Wow.
Actually, we're probably right around 160, 170 total participants. So we're really excited about it.
And this festival's been going on for nearly 20 years. And Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of how the festival started and got going and where it is today?
Okay, sure. There are other festivals in the area. There's one down in Charlottesville, for example, and one of the former rectors of George Mason had been on the board of the Virginia Foundation for the Humanities and had sort of watched that festival, and he realized Northern Virginia would be a good venue for this kind of an event. So he talked to the then mayor of the city of Fairfax, and then he also talked to Alan Merton, the president of the university, and they said, yeah, let's put together a committee. And I was on that committee as the director of creative writing at Mason. So we began to sort of look at the possibilities, and we put together the first festival that happened in September of '99. It started on Thursday, and I think maybe we had 24 writers total. We started on a Thursday evening with a reading in the basement of the college bookstore, and then on Friday we had a series of events and panels and things like that happening on campus. And then Saturday we went to the old historic courthouse area of the city of Fairfax and wrapped up with a morning and early afternoon of more panels, more presentations and stuff outside. We've done a number of venue enlargements and contractions and things like that going through time period. For a while, we did what I call putting the festival on wheels and pushing it around. We went to the branch libraries, we went over into Maryland into the district, and just tried to take the festival where people will go and where we thought people would be interested. And we even created magnet events or programs that would kind of synthesize what we were doing, and we hoped that would let people know about it and that they would come either that year or the next year to other events that we were doing. So it's been a very much an evolutionary process and a learning experience and a growing process to try to take that original idea that Randy Wood, the former rector, had from the Virginia Festival and try to make it fit the socioeconomic status and the reading interests and the diversity of the Northern Virginia region.
And we have what, 24,000 people just in Fairfax, and then it's almost 2 million people in the kind of Northern Virginia region. So there's a lot of people who would be interested in this and don't have to go all the way down to the other festival for it. You have it here.
Yes,
it's
we
in
don't
the
talk
fall.
about that other festival.
Right, we're not talking about it. Well, they're in a different time of year in any case. So,
Yeah.
So that's exciting. And then this year we're going to be doing the festival a little differently. You're kind of connecting it with the Fairfax City Festival as well.
Yes, the fall festival. So our festival this year runs October 11th through 14th. It's a Wednesday through Saturday, but our big day is going to be on Saturday the 14th, and that'll be coinciding with the Fairfax Fall Festival, which brings a lot of people down for events, arts and crafts fair, that sort of thing. But we'll get to add to that this year by having author events and author workshops, children's events with a lot of activities for families as well, and of course a lot of adult activities too, a lot of book club interest. A lot of authors that cater to book clubs and those kind of general reader interests.
And there'll be transportation?
Yeah, so there's actually going to be free parking in the Rappahannock parking deck on Mason's campus, and that's for people taking the shuttle bus downtown to Fairfax, but we are setting up in Merton Hall, which is directly right next to it. So they can park there for free, come over and check out a few events, see the Fall Festival downtown. So it's going to be a really nice partnership.
Wonderful, and let's get into the books. So that you've often brought headliners year after year to enjoy the festival. Some that come to mind: Stephen King. Let's see, Cisneros.
Sandra
Sandra
Cisneros we had last year. That was
Tim
wonderful.
O'Brien.
Tim O'Brien, and then
Yeah.
the poet laureate Billy Collins also participated in Fall for the Book last year. You've been able to draw these big names. It's been wonderful to bring, so you don't have to go all the way downtown for to enjoy a really popular novelist. You can do it right here in your own backyard here in Fairfax. Who are the headliners this year?
So one that we're very excited about is Colson Whitehead, who of course wrote The Underground Railroad. This is actually the first book in over 20 years to win both the National Book Award and the Pulitzer Prize for fiction in the same year. So we're particularly excited about having Colson Whitehead here to talk about the Underground Railroad.
And this is a sort of a fantasy take on the Underground Railroad.
It is. There's an actual railroad in this version of history. Yeah, and it's a really interesting take on it. One of the things that's interesting about historical fiction, I think, is he uses this device in it to really kind of capture the emotional truth of the history that he's writing about.
Yeah.
Just to chime in on that, because in the book, no one actually escapes slavery through the Underground Railroad. It's thought throughout much of the book that the mother of one of the key characters has, but late in the book, it's revealed that she didn't. I won't spoil everything by giving it away.
We were sitting here, spoiler alert, you're supposed to say that before you give away content, but go ahead.
but I wanted to reiterate what Kara was saying, that the content, I mean, this is, use the word fantasy version, and in a sense it is, but it also has a kind of metaphorical implication in terms of the story line and the difficulty of escaping slavery. And of course, what Whitehead does, if you think of the book as having like two key parts, he talks about the horribleness of slavery and just sort of sets up the difficulty of family life, of the things that we take for granted, and he shows how those things were not part of that life, and also looks at the white lives in that time period, the slave owners, and how those lives were affected by slavery and were not enhanced in a lot of ways. So it's a very critical look at, and I'm being critical evaluative, not from the standpoint of negativity, but very evaluative look at that aspect, but then also the disruption and the lack of socialization that happened among the slaves, and then the impossibility of escape. And that goes for the whites as well as the African Americans.
Yeah, it was.
It's pretty powerful.
I read it as well. It was very intense.
It is intense. In my humble opinion, it deserves both of the major awards it won.
Absolutely.
Well, good. You've got Bill's vote, and we also have another sort of in the genre of fantasy. Lev Grossman is another headliner. The Magician series trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely. So The Magicians is, we call the adult version of Harry Potter. George R.R. Martin loves it. His blurb is so funny, talking about you need a shot of whiskey with this. Yeah, so this is really fantastic. It involves a teenager who's brilliant, but also just depressed and not interested in the world. But he's obsessed with this children's fantasy book that I'd liken pretty close to the Chronicles of Narnia, that talk about going through a portal to a magical place. And he actually goes through one day a portal and finds this magical school. And he goes there, and there's just a bunch of debauchery that occurs, as well as learning magic. But it's fantastic, and Sci-Fi optioned it, and it's I think it's in its second or third season now on Sci-Fi. A lot of people really enjoy it.
Another portal type novel that is another one of your headliners is East West by, and help me with the name, Mohsin
Hamid.
Mohsin
Exit
Hamid.
West.
Another story where the characters go through portals.
Yes, and this is actually about two young people. There's a bit of a love story in it, but it's set against the backdrop of a civil war that's just breaking out in their home country.
In Pakistan, or?
It's not actually specified in this book.
Well, the author is from Pakistan.
Yes, Mohsin Hamid is from Pakistan. Yes. So the idea of them escaping through these doors or these portals there is very much about the refugee experience, I think, and the need to escape living in a country like that, in that sort of situation.
Yeah. Was there an intention in choosing these particular authors, or it just so happened that we have a couple portal and fantasy related headliners?
And underground trains.
And underground trains.
Until you put it like that, I had not thought about it that way.
Making connections is what I do.
Lev Grossman is somebody who actually talks about the importance of fantasy and how it's sometimes as a genre looked down on in literature, but it's found its way into so many of these major books, and it's really interesting to see the different takes all of these authors have on it.
Let me just reiterate that. I mean, I think that one of the points here is that we work, and this is educational about Fall for the Book as well, we work off of what's coming out of the publishing houses now, small, independent, big, whatever they are. So it's interesting that so many writers are writing about the subject of escape or the issue of portals and the desire for escape and change as a component of that. So it's a reflection not of what we're picking so much as it is of what writers are writing.
And the
publishers.
consciousness of the writers at this time makes a lot of sense. You know, maybe perhaps we can correlate. I mean, it's directly correlated in this book in terms of immigration and traveling from one country to another. But the idea of the immigrant story that has been in the consciousness of America for several years, and the flight of people, what they're used to, going to something foreign and unfamiliar, and the authors are taking this into context and building it into fiction, and helping us all understand better.
And of course, the lead time from when a writer has an idea to when a book comes out is at least 2 years and probably 3 to 5 years. So we're looking at world events being reflected now that were beginning or seeded anyway as long as 5 years ago.
And well, Mohsin Hamid was put a book out a couple years ago that was almost a precursor to what actually happened with immigration, the Reluctant Fundamentalist, and which this is his first book, I think, that came out prior to the one we're talking about that's going to be coming in as a headliner today.
Yes, but that's another fantastic book, and it deals with a Muslim American living in the U.S. Leading up to and during and after 9/11. So it's definitely a political novel and tackles a lot of those issues of Islamophobia and immigration and what that experience was like.
Yeah, and I haven't read it, but I think there's a prediction of some bans on Muslims coming to the country,
Yes.
and obviously was written prior to the bans that were put in place. So fantastic headliners coming, and they're going to be throughout the festival. I think Colson Whitehead's coming, what, on the first day of the festival?
Yes, he'll be opening the festival on our first evening, Wednesday, October 11th at 7:30 p.m., and that'll be at Harris Theater on the George Mason University Fairfax campus.
And I think you have an associated display from the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute photographers. I think they're going to be
Yes.
putting together some works.
We're really excited, and I've seen some of the photographs that have been coming in, and they're fantastic. Yeah, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute photographers went out and using the National Park Service's map of important sites on the Underground Railroad, actually went out or are going out right now and are taking photographs of sites in Northern Virginia, slave jails or monuments and things like that. So they've gone from Old Town Alexandria out to Loudoun County. So we're going to have that display up, and then we are also going to have esteemed Robinson Professor Spencer Crew. He's worked in the National History Museum, right? The American History Museum. And also he's done a lot of work with the Underground Railroad. So he'll be speaking right before Colson Whitehead to give some historical context to the period of how slavery impacted America. And that's going to be very, very interesting.
That's terrific. And you're getting to meet the author. You're getting to get books signed. You're also getting this wonderful education, visual education, and a lecture to go along with it that just kind of brings the whole story together, which is what is unique about Fall for the Book Festival. That you don't just do one thing; you do multi-layers of things, which is fabulous. You're going to have some panels. There'll be one with the theme is love, right? And then we have these 3 books that are going to be highlighted. The author's going to come and talk about these things. Sonia Yoger?
I love this
Yes.
book, and she's actually going to be reading Friday morning on a separate discussion, but this is a really fantastic book that deals with mental illness, multiple generations, 3 generations of women in this family in Vermont, and mental illness and finding magic and all of that.
And it's called All the Best People.
Yes.
And then we have Rich and Pretty by Ruman Alam.
Yes, this is a really interesting friendship story that follows 2 women from the time that they were childhood friends up until they're adults, and one of them's getting ready to get married, but their paths have kind of diverged a lot, even though they still consider themselves best friends. And it really explores how friendships change over the course of a lifetime. It's a really great book.
Very good. And this one's very interesting to me. Martia Golden, The Wide Circumference of Love, and we're dealing with Alzheimer's and a family that's struggling with that, and how the individual with Alzheimer's has also kind of changed and pursuing other interests of their own. So fascinating. Three different stories about love, and they're interconnected. Yeah. So there'll be individual readings for each of these authors, or just the first one, and then the panel?
A couple of them will be on panels with some other authors, and then a couple will be doing individual readings.
Okay. Bill, there's an author that I learned about that is talking about the identity, self-identity. And you have a book here. I think it's Gisht. Is the
Gisht
Gisht
Jen.
Jen.
Yeah.
Tell us about Gisht Jen and the theme of the book.
Gisht Jen is Chinese American herself, and her parents immigrated from China. And the title of the book takes its title from an episode that she heard about, where a young woman in China applied to a college in the U.S., did an interview through Skype, so she was seen. She wrote questions and answers and essays and sent them all in. They admitted her. They lined up scholarships for her. They bought her a plane ticket. They went to the baggage claim of the title, and it wasn't she who was there. It was her sister, whose English was not as good, whose writing was not nearly as good, and who did not qualify for admission to the college program that she was led into. So Gisjin starts with that and says, what is it about people that of a different culture that would think that was okay to do, that was entirely acceptable? And then she sort of talks a lot about the East and the West. One of the main points, for example, is how in the Asian cultures, individuals try to sort of step back and be part of a group. So when you think about, when we challenge China, for example, on the issue of human rights, and we want to protect an individual who's campaigning on behalf of human rights, that's very alien to that culture, because that individual in campaigning for human rights is setting himself or herself apart from the larger good and the benefit of a cultural norm in society. So that when the leaders of China, this is Gisjin's perspective, when the leaders of China argue back that they are doing what is normal for them, we don't get it. So it just doesn't translate. There's just a lack of a parallelism there in terms of our understanding. Mm-hmm. So I've just had a great time reading that book and learned a lot, got a lot of insights from it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it myself. I think the idea of the collective viewpoint and then the American ethnocentric viewpoint of the individual taking charge of their lives and looking out for their own, but there's not that collectivist.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, do you succeed as one of many, or do you succeed on your own? And we pride ourselves on individual success and individual liberty here. So that's a very ingrained norm for us.
Right. And the idea of getting assistance from anyone else or cheating in any way does not comport with the American point of view, and unless they can really get away with it, right?
Don't go there.
Okay, so let's continue to work our way around the table. I think we have a full day of activity that's going to happen at the Old Town Hall in Fairfax for children.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about, is this one of the authors?
Yes. I love this book, Hello, Goodbye Dog by Maria Gianferrari. So Maria is just going to be one of the, several children's authors who will be in Old Town Hall all day long, starting at 10:30 and ending after 4:30. So I guess that'll be 5:30. All the events are free. You don't need a ticket. Show up with your kids. We're doing a lot of interactive activities, starting with a story time, pirate-themed story time. Kids can walk the plank. We're going to do some jewelry making crafts. We're going to have a comic drawing workshop. And then Maria herself is going to talk about therapy dogs, because that's one of the roles in this book. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot of fun for kids of all ages. So it's not just the really young crowd. Check the schedule, because there's going to be a lot of really good stuff there.
And we're also going to do, you're going to do a graphic novel panel for those kids who are, and adults who like the graphic novel genre.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a really good panel lineup with some graphic novelists as well as comic book artists. So we're really excited about that. And that'll be an interesting thing to see what kind of workshop they do and also what the kids produce out of that workshop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there any particular YA authors you want to highlight?
One we might want to talk about is Marie Marquardt, who wrote a novel called The Radius of Us. And that gets a little bit back into the theme of immigration. In addition to being a YA author, she's also an immigration advocate. So she'll be on a panel talking about immigration and fiction with Gisjin,
very good.
as well as one other author, Janine Capot-Crusette, who's
and her book is here as well, and I think it's a all Mason Reed's book.
Yes. And you actually have the hardback of it.
I do actually, yeah.
So this is the book that, as we speak, all of the freshmen coming into Mason this fall are getting at orientation. It's an excellent book. The author herself is from a Cuban-American family, and the book is about a young girl who's the first in her family to graduate from high school and go away to college. So it's very much about that first-year college experience, which is wonderful for the freshmen to be reading over the summer. But also about the immigrant experience and what it's like to be living between two cultures.
My son received one of these because he's a freshman at Mason. So
excellent.
I think that's where that came from. That hard copy, I'm not sure.
And can I actually go back to your thing on YA?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention we have a room dedicated on Saturday to all of the awesome genre fiction that people are just clamoring for. I write urban fantasy, so I love it. So we have urban fantasy writers, we have fantasy writers. If you know Tor, the publisher, they're a huge name in the fantasy world. We have several of their writers coming. Historical fiction. We even have a YA magic panel featuring S.J. Jones. And that's going to end that room right before Lev Grossman. So moving right along from YA magic to Lev Grossman magic.
And where is that room?
That's in Merton Hall, room 1201.
So on the Mason campus,
Yeah.
not in Old Town Hall.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all that will be on the website, fallforthebook.org. And also,
And we'll soon have printed programs in various libraries all around the region.
you can look for information out at your local library. And also, before we end today, I want to let people know about the book club. On the website, there's a tab for book clubs, people who have book clubs who want to sign up and enjoy some of the receptions and things that you're doing for Fall for the Book. Can you tell us about how book clubs can get involved with the festival?
Sure. So we do have a book club tab on our website that that introduces you to some reading guides and that sort of thing for a lot of the book club authors that are coming. And if you do have a book club that you're planning on bringing, you can always contact us, and we'll make sure we get you some good seats and make arrangements for your book club. But you also mentioned receptions, and we do have a Friends program. There's information about that on the website as well. But if you become an individual donor, you can come to some of our VIP receptions and meet some of these headline authors that we've been talking about.
So a lot of fun for Friends, and the festival sounds amazing. And I'm gonna go. I'm sure our viewers are gonna go. Thank you both, all three of you, for being here today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching On the Go with AAUW.